Hey guys, Wet Movie 1 back here again for another Blu-ray DVD update video for you guys today. It's been about 2 weeks or so since my last one. I got a lot of cool stuff here to talk to you guys about today. But guys, please remember to hit that like button or the thumbs up button if you guys like my videos or support my videos. But guys, let's get started with it. First up from Sony is About Last Night here on Blu-ray, starring Regina and Kevin Hart. For you guys who don't know, About Last Night was originally a play written by David Mamet and then turned into a movie in the mid-80s starring Demi Moore and Rob Lowe, which I've always liked. And this one right here, like I said, stars Kevin Hart and Regina Hall. They're a couple. They're kind of like on the ins and outs of they're always breaking up and getting back together kind of couple. And they bring their friends along to a club one night, and their friends fall in love with each other, move in with each other like really awful fast. And this movie's pretty much about relationship problems and what happens when you fall in love too fast with somebody and move in with them, and you don't really quite know the person, but yet you're moving in with them. It's just one big relationship problem kind of movie. But I thought Kevin Hart and Regina Hall really shined in this movie, especially Kevin Hart, because of course he's on the rise right now with, of course, his stand-up comedy Ride Along, and now he has the Think Like a Man 2, I believe, coming out in June. And I just really like his persona on film. Like I said in my review of Ride Along in my last update, I just think he's really funny. Sometimes he's a little bit over the top for movie acting wise when it comes to serious kind of drama moments. He's always kind of sort of the same kind of personality in every scene, which is fine to me. I like it, but some scenes it just doesn't fit for me, But on this Blu-ray here, you get, of course, a making of with the actors talking about their experience making the film, and there's some Blu-ray exclusive features on here with talking to real people on the street about relationship problems, like how do you fall in love with somebody, being asked certain questions and them answering it and things, along with the cast and crew members also talking about it. I thought the picture quality on this film was actually really damn good, but I really have to say I still like the original one from the 80s a lot more, that stars Demi Moore and Rob Lowe and James Belushi and stuff. I had it on Blu-ray for a long time. I just haven't opened it yet, but I've always liked the original About Last Night. But definitely give this one a chance if you guys like the original. It's not an exact remake. It does have some different elements to it, so you're not going in there watching the same exact line for line, shot for shot kind of thing. But it is totally worth watching. I really did enjoy this one. Alright guys, next up from Warner Brothers is the Veronica Mars movie here on Blu-ray. For you guys who don't know, Veronica Mars was a television show that lasted for about 3 seasons and got canceled. And then, about 7 to 10 years later, they made the Veronica Mars movie, only because the fans came out in droves to support the Kickstarter campaign that Warner Brothers had for this Veronica Mars movie. And they went over and beyond what they thought they were going to raise for this flick. They ended up making over $2 million within the first half a day alone, and over $5 million in total to make the Veronica Mars movie, because all the fans wanted to know what happened to Veronica Mars at the end of season 3. But now in the Veronica Mars movie, it takes place 10 years after the show. Veronica Mars has walked away from being a private eye and went into to become a lawyer, and now now she just graduated law school or whatever it is, and she's just watching the news one day and finds out that her ex-boyfriend supposedly killed somebody in the small town that she lives in, and it's pretty much her going back to her small town, strapping on her detective boots again to try to figure out what the hell really happened. That's pretty much the basis of this movie. I thought it was a fun mystery. It's one of those ones I couldn't really tell who done it until towards the end. You know what I mean? It's not one of those ones that's easy to tell who the killer is and things like that. But it also doesn't really feel like a movie to me. It just feels like an elongated episode that you would see on television of Veronica Mars. It's still really enjoyable, but the really cool thing is about this Blu-ray, guys, is there's a making of documentary on here of talking about how the filmmakers of this started the campaign on Kickstarter and how they raised all this money, and they even have video interviews with some of the backers backers that, you know, donated to the film, talking about how much they loved the show, and, you know, how they took the film or whatever it is to Comic-Con, or clips to Comic-Con to show the fans. And just like, it's like an hour-long documentary, really made, you know, really well-made documentary on the whole process of this whole, from the Kickstarter campaign till the release of the film, which I thought was really exceptional. I really did like watching that a little bit more than I liked the movie, to be honest. But that's the Veronica Mars movie here on Blu-ray. Alright guys, next up from Paramount is Labor Day here on Blu-ray, starring Kate Winslet and Josh Brolin. In this film, Kate Winslet suffers from agoraphobia. She doesn't really go out very often. She goes out like once a month with her son to the supermarket to pick up supplies to bring home. And on one weekend when she's out with her son getting supplies for the house, she meets Josh Brolin in the supermarket, and Josh Brolin says, "Hey, I need you to give me a ride and take me to your house and hide me out for a while." While she's going, "What the hell is going on?" And come to find out that Josh Brolin is an escaped convict, and he's, you know, on the run for murder. And it's pretty much how Josh Brolin's just trying to hide out from the police for just long enough so he can escape. I kind of like this movie. I kind of like the look of it a lot more than the story itself, because the look of it, like in the small town that they're in, kind of looks like a Stand By Me, Goonies kind of feel, with like a lot of trees and shrubbery around. I kind of always like that kind of, you know, vibe of a film. But Labor Day, it's a nice romantic, you know, kind of flick, but with a different little twist to it. That's Labor Day here on Blu-ray. Definitely give it a chance if it sounds interesting to you. It was not that bad. Okay guys, next up from Twilight Time is Broadway Danny Rose here on Blu-ray, starring Woody Allen, who you guys all know from Annie Hall and Manhattan. In this film, Woody Allen plays a New York talent agent to some of the crappiest acts in town, like, you know, balloon benders and like really crappy singers, like this one guy named Lou. He's like a crappy lounge singer, but yet that's like the best guy in Woody Allen's repertoire. So he's trying to do anything for him to try to make a buck. And even Woody Allen himself kind of wants to be a star himself, but never really, you know, struck it big, you know, as an act. So he's kind of just managing acts now. And this guy named Lou is the best person he has in his repertoire. And Lou asked Woody to go find this one beautiful blonde girl that, you know, Lou fell in love with. Yet Lou has a wife but loves this other girl, and asks his talent agent to go and find her and bring her to him. And this movie is just pretty much the adventure of Woody Allen going to do that and getting mixed up in the mob, and the mob chasing him and the girl. For what reason, you have to, you know, watch the movie to find out. I've always kind of really loved Woody Allen movies just because he's kind of a quirky little character, especially when he's in the films himself, you know what I mean? Like, just the persona of Woody Allen and just the wacky kind of character that he always plays in movies always, like, you know, really entices me to keep wanting to watch his flicks. One of my favorite movies that he was ever in, that I know he didn't direct or write it, I don't believe. It's a movie called Scenes from a Mall, starring him and Bette Midler, like as a couple, like whining and complaining to each other as they're walking around the mall. I've always kind of really loved that movie. But this one right here is my second favorite one of all time. It's the first time it's ever been released on Blu-ray, and I gotta say the transfer on this thing is absolutely amazing. But you only get the original theatrical trailer on here as a special feature, which which is cool. I wish there was a couple other like maybe special features on this thing, but just the transfer alone is worth getting this, especially if you're a big Woody Allen fan. But definitely check out Twilight Time for this one. It's a good transfer on that. But I have another one here from Twilight Time also, and that's Used Cars here on Blu-ray, starring Kurt Russell and Jack Warden, who you guys all know from like Problem Child, that played the grandpa in the Problem Child movies. I've always kind of liked Jack and Warden. He's just a great character actor in my opinion. But in this film, Jack Warden has a twin brother. They both have competing car dealerships across the street from one another. They're always kind of like, you know, seeing who can make the most money kind of thing. But of course, one of the other brothers, you know, they're twins, so Jack Warden's playing both the roles. one of the brothers is kind of like a mean kind of guy that kind of wants his brother to die and just like disappear because he wants all the business for himself, you know, on that street. And it's pretty much about, you know, the competing car lots and things like that. And Kurt Russell's like the best salesman at one of the car lots that's trying to keep, you know, the business going and try to raise some money so he can become like a senator or something like that. It's kind of crazy. Always really kind of like this movie. A lot of great funny laughs in this thing. It's also directed by Robert Zemeckis, the same guy that made the Back to the Future flicks. And I think this is the movie that him and Bob Gale made right before they made Back to the Future, I believe. They could have done something right before, but I'm not quite sure. But so you get the Back to the Future team in here directing this one. But the really cool thing is about this Blu-ray, guys, is that you get audio commentary on here by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale. You also get a gag reel, outtakes, interviews, and radio spots on this Blu-ray here. Also, the transfer of this film is the best I've ever seen it look. I can't recommend this this Blu-ray enough, especially if you're a fan of used cars. But guys, for these two movies here, make sure you guys go to screenarchives.com to pick yourself up a copy. You can't just go to like Amazon or Best Buy to pick these up. They're limited to 3,000 copies a piece for each of these titles put out by Twilight Time. So check out screenarchives.com if you guys are interested in these titles. Alright guys, next up from Lionsgate is Give Me Shelter here on Blu-ray, starring Vanessa Hudgens, Rosario Dawson, and James Earl Jones, who you guys all know from like Star Wars and Roots and things like that. But in this movie, Vanessa Hudgens plays this abused teenager that's just like had enough of her mom, because her mom's like a real bad drug addict that always mentally and physically abuses her all the time. And it's just pretty much her trying to get out of this situation and find her father that she's never really ever seen or met before, to try to just, you know, start anew. And this is it's just a kind of a story of a young woman trying to better herself and just, you know, trying to, you know, get away from all these drugs and the bad situation that she's in. I thought Vanessa Hudgens did a very good job in this film playing the abused teenager, because when I was watching it, she kind of disappeared into her role, and I wasn't looking at her as Vanessa Hudgens at the beginning. I thought it was like somebody else, you know what I mean? Like I didn't think it was her until like later on in the movie. I'm like, oh geez, you know. And it's kind of cool also to see Rosario Dawson in there playing like a, you know, cracked out mother and stuff, you know, just kind of like, get over here, girl, you know, like, you know, not that over the top or anything like that. But it was like a nice uplifting film, especially if you watch it all the way through. I believe it's like a Christian film because there's a little dove on the corner here. I thought it was very interesting. Definitely check this one out if you guys see it out there. I really did enjoy this film. Alright guys, next up is Escape from Tomorrow here on Blu-ray. This movie's pretty much about this family of four going to Epcot Center or Disney World or whatever, and just them getting away from their lives for a weekend just to have some fun. But yet the father of the family, as he's there, starts seeing things and starts going slowly and slowly out of his mind. He sees weird images when he's on these rides, and he starts to see these girls that are in the park, and he starts following these young girls like he's in love with them, yet he's still with his kids and things like that. And while his wife's looking at him like, what are you doing, honey? You know what I mean? Like, he's starting to slowly go out of his mind from all these weird images that he's seeing. That's pretty much the basis of this movie. But the really cool thing is about this movie, if you guys have never heard about it before, is that these filmmakers went to Epcot Center or Disney World, Disneyland, or whatever it is, and filmed the movie there without permission of Disney. Like, Disneyland and Disney, you know, the Disney Corporation didn't know that these filmmakers were there actually making a movie, you know, at their theme parks and things about, you know, how crazy it could be if you go to their theme park. I thought that was a cool way to actually shoot a film. I would be scared out of my mind if I went to like some sort of theme park and try to film a movie, let alone like a vlog that I do with my little camera. And I'm sure that's how they kind of did it. Or like, you know, little cameras you can just like, you know, strap over your neck and things like that. They take pictures with. But it was just kind of cool to see that they went there, filmed a movie there, got it into like a film festival. Now it's being put on Blu-ray. and Disney's not doing anything about it. Like, I don't think they seem to really care about that they made a movie there, kind of thing, you know. But on this Blu-ray here, you get a making of a documentary with the filmmakers talking about the movie, commentary tracks, theatrical trailers, and things like that. Definitely check this movie out. It's not an amazing movie by any means, but just the way when you watch it, it's kind of like they making a movie at this theme park, not paying the film there, just doing it and like saying, hell, I don't care, I'm just gonna try to make a movie, kind of thing, you know. Check this one out. It's just kind of cool to know that they filmed the movie there without permission, you know. Escape from Tomorrow. I kind of dug it a little bit. Okay, guys, next up is Flowers in the Attic here on DVD, starring Heather Graham and Ellen Burstyn. In this film, Heather Graham has the perfect family. She has 4 kids and a husband. Her husband just got the job of a lifetime, so they're set for life. They have no worries in the world up until they find out that her husband mysteriously passes, you know, not mysteriously, but passes away, and now she's kind of stuck with her kids trying to figure out how she's going to, you know, support them and, you know, keep their lives going. Because she's just one of those pretty housewives that doesn't really, you know, do much except for be the pretty housewife that just wanders around not really, you know, not really doing much. But now that her husband's gone, she has to figure out what she's going to do to support her kids. So she ends up taking them to her parents' house because her parents are really well off. They're super rich. She's actually going to their parents' house to see if she can actually get some money or be put into her father's will before he passes away because he's kind of sick. So she goes to her parents' house, and when she gets there, she gets greeted by Ellen Burstyn, her mother, in this movie, and gets shuffled upstairs to this big mansion that they have, into this room that, you know, the grandfather would never know that her and her kids were there. And her kids end up being, you know, pretty much locked up in this attic area for all this time, while the mother's there trying to reconcile with the mother and you know, the father, trying to see if she can get some money to support her kids. But then it just you know, follows the kids and how they're stuck in this house. I found this movie to be absolutely enthralling. Like, I was really into it. It's a made-for like TV movie, but I thought it was just very well acted, especially by Ellen Burstyn. Like, she was like probably the greatest part of this film. When I was watching it, I'm like, dude, my mom can play that part. You know what I mean? Like, my mom's not mean or anything like that, but I can see my mom playing the Ellen Burstyn part in this film. I can't recommend this one enough. But that's Flowers in the Attic here on DVD. Give this one a chance, guys. Really kind of dark and, you know, mysterious. You know, like, why are all the kids locked up there for all this time? And, you know, like, what's going on with the mother? Because the mother's not locked up there with them. You know what I mean? It's kind of a crazy story that I don't want to ruin for you. I want you to see it for yourself. But next up over here is a movie I really couldn't get into, and that was a movie. It's called Survival Code here on DVD. It's pretty much about it takes place in like, what, 2045 AD. All the Earth's resources are pretty much all used up. The polar ice caps are melting. Like, all the gas in the world is almost running out, and it's the battle between, like, you know, the Americans or Canadians versus the Russians, and who's gonna have the last bit of it, you know, kind of a storyline. It was filmed, you know, it was filmed well. The actors they had for the movie were fine, but it was just kind of like not enough meat to the story to keep me interested, to make me care about the characters, to make me really care about what's going on in the story. Because there's this one guy that owns like a bar slash like hotel that he runs, that people can go into just to get away from, you know, the craziness of life of the war or whatever it is that's going on, and, you know, drink their lives away. And he's like an MMA fighter. It's just one of those things that's really kind of confusing to talk about, because it's not a very, you know, well done movie at all. The story needed to be fleshed out more for like the characters, and just like, I don't know, it was kind of hard to explain like what the hell is really going on in this thing, you know. I just really couldn't get into it. Really kind of just poor in my opinion. But that's Survival Code here on DVD. Alright guys, next up from Anchor Bay is The Art of the Steal here on Blu-ray, starring Kurt Russell, Matt Dillon, and Jay Baruchel. In this film, Kurt Russell plays this character named Crunch. He's just being let out of prison because he was in there for 5 years for, you know, getting caught stealing some art with his crew that he used to run with. He's being let out of prison. He doesn't have a dime to his name, so he decides to become a motorcycle daredevil to make some, you know, fast cash. And he's just really struggling along with his life, trying to figure out how is he going to support himself. He's made a friend since he's been out of jail played by Jay Baruchel. He's kind of, you know, working with him, you know, as the motorcycle daredevil, like helping him out and stuff behind the scenes, up until his old crew, you know, Matt Dillon and his old crew, the art people that steal stuff, come back into town and need his help to have like the biggest heist in history, to go out and steal, like, you know, a big piece of art or this book or whatever. And it's them coming back and him going, I don't want to be a part of this anymore, and how he kind of gets roped back into the art stealing business again. I kind of like these movies. This movie kind of has that same kind of vibe as, like, you know, Ocean's 11, you know, those kind of heist kind of movie things. Really kind of fast-paced, really witty dialogue in this one, which I really enjoyed. I always like Jay Baruchel in movies. I always like his kind of, you know, nerdy kind of persona that he has in flicks, and Matt Dillon's always good. Definitely check this one out if you guys are into the heist movies. Is it amazing? No. But it's totally worth watching at least once or twice. Alright guys, next up from Image Entertainment is the 25th anniversary of Chances Are here on Blu-ray, starring Sybil Shepherd, Christopher McDonald, and Robert Downey Jr. I've always kind of liked this movie since the first time I ever saw it. It's just a wonderful romantic comedy film about this young couple that just recently got married, and they're celebrating their 1-year anniversary. And on the night of their anniversary dinner, Christopher McDonald is crossing a street and gets hit by a car and dies. But yet, his spirit goes up into heaven, and he's asked, do you want to, you know, be reincarnated as somebody else and maybe go back down to earth? He's like, yes, I want to be able to see my wife again. So he ends up getting reincarnated and, put into Robert Downey Jr.'s character, because Robert Downey Jr. is being born the same day as he died. And 20 years later, he ends up, seeing his wife again, but under a different circumstance, because his spirit's in a new person's body, Robert Downey Jr. And he sees his wife for the first time in, 20 years, and he goes, oh my God, that's my wife. And he tries to, reconnect with his wife and, tell Sybil Shepherd, like, I'm your husband. I am, kind of thing. It's a wonderful romantic comedy. It's always nice to revisit this one. One of the, Robert Downey Jr.'s early movies before, of course, Iron Man and things like that. But the only downside to this Blu-ray here, it is the 25th anniversary edition, but there's no special features on this. Not even a commentary or a theatrical trailer. There's nothing. It's just a movie in HD. But as Chances Are on Blu-ray, if you're a fan of the film, I would get it anyway, just to upgrade your DVD. But just don't expect too much from the transfer. It was okay, but not the greatest. But that's the Chances Are on Blu-ray. But next up over here is Lewis Black, Old Yeller, live at the Borgata, his new live stand-up comedy special. And in this special, Lewis Black, talks about his family life and talks about what he thinks about Facebook and how social media is now. Why does he need to post what he's doing? Like, alright, I'm over here at this restaurant eating this food. Who cares? Attitude that, because he's grown, he's grown up in a whole different kind of generation than a lot of us have. It was an absolute blast to watch, and it was kind of cool to see Lewis Black's, parents sitting in the audience, even though in the special he was talking crap about him once or twice in it. I thought it was absolutely funny. But that's Lewis Black, Old Yeller, live at the Borgata. Check this one out, guys. Absolutely a lot of fun. And next up from Kino is a Hazard Jack here on DVD. It's pretty much about this war veteran kind of, coming back from Iraq after fighting in the war. He's kind of all crazy in the head from all the visions that he's seen when he was fighting in the war. He's just getting fired from his job that he works at. He's starting to go absolutely crazy. He's, hanging out in this old abandoned hospital, and he's just taking refuge there, just chilling out there, until these young teenage or 20-something college kids or whatever go into this hospital to go in there to have a party and have a paintball, go in there for some paintball games or whatever they're gonna do, and just wreck the place. But yet, come to find out, when those dumb kids go there having sex, doing drugs, and creating all this mischief, Hazard Jack's there to pick them off one by one. I'm getting really animated with this one, but that's pretty much the basis of the story on this one. It's kind of like a, it kind of felt like an 80s throwback kind of slasher flick that you would see come out back in the 80s. It wasn't very good at all. The gore was kind of cool, But to me, I was watching it going, the characters are not very interesting at all. You know, like I was just like, please, like just kill them. They're stupid already, you know. I was just like watching it, waiting for the kills to happen. But it was just cool to see the guy going nuts and, you know, killing the kids off one by one kind of thing. That's pretty much the thing of it. But would I recommend it? To super slasher fans, yes. But just the casual horror slasher fans, yeah. You could probably just skip this one because it wasn't the greatest. It sounds a lot cooler than it is, but it was just kind of like bleh, bleh. But next up over here from Well Go USA is the new Donnie Yen flick, who you guys all know from It Man and Flashpoint and stuff like that. Donnie Yen in Special ID. And in this film, he plays an undercover cop. You know, he's been undercover for so long, you know, trying to bust these bad guys. And then the bad guys of the film start to find out, or start to figure out that he's a cop. And he's trying to figure out, oh shit, what am I gonna do? And it's pretty much him going back and forth between his cop life and his undercover life until his undercover life blends with his real life, and his mom gets in danger, and it's pretty much him trying to save his mom and, you know, figure out what the hell he's gonna do in the situation that he's in. I thought the action of this film was absolutely badass, like the fight scenes and stuff, but the storyline, when you're watching it, because I watched it dubbed, you can get an English dub on this track too, or watch it in the original Chinese language. I don't know, I didn't get the story completely. You know, like some of the back and forth kind of like, is this the good side? Is that the bad side? It was kind of getting kind of all jumbled up to me, but the action stuff, absolutely amazing. Donnie Yen, I gotta say, is probably one of my favorite action stars of today, ever since It Man, and ever since I've pretty much seen him, because he seems to put 110% of himself in these movies when he's doing those action scenes, and they're just really over the top and amazing in my opinion. But that Special ID here on Blu-ray, definitely check it out, especially for the fight scenes. Alright guys, next up from Wild Eye Releasing is Longlived A Dead here on DVD. This is a zombie anthology horror film that has 5 short stories in it, all revolving around women, and I found that to be kind of an interesting take on a horror anthology film that just, you know, takes place all with, you know, women and all the stories and stuff. And some of the stories, of course, were better than others. Some of the filmmaking, like the way they shot some of the stories, like the first one, and in this thing, there's kind of shoddy filmmaking. It feels like real amateurish for the most part in some of these films. But I did like 2 of the stories in this horror anthology. I forgot what one of them is called. I believe it's like Picture or Die For, when these 2 girls are going to a cemetery to take some pictures for their art class and things of, like, you know, creepy images and like headstones and things like that. And they're getting like little phone calls from like their boyfriends and stuff saying, you better get over here, there's like a zombie outbreak that's happening, you got to get back indoors, get out of here now, you know. And they see this like weird person kind of like walking around, you know, the cemetery. Of course it's a zombie, like I said a second ago, but they're not really sure. It's just a kind of, they think it's like a creepy guy walking around. They're taking pictures, and while the zombie outbreak is happening, I thought that was kind of a cool short. And there's another one on here, I believe it's called Zoe Dies at the End, you know, like John dies at the end, kind of like a title, but Zoe dies at the end, with these 2 girls at home talking about their boyfriends and, you know, life and stuff like that, until they get into this conversation about zombie movies and like Walking Dead and Dawn of the Dead and, you know, all the George Romero movies, and like talking about zombies this and zombies that, because one of the girls, that's her obsession, is just talking about zombie movies. Like, that's her thing. She loves watching Walking Dead. She loves watching Night of the Living Dead. Like, that's her thing. She just loves watching things that have to do with zombies. But at the same time, a zombie outbreak is happening outside of their house, and you know, a zombie or 2 end up in their house, and they're like figuring out, oh my god, what am I supposed to do? Like, you watch zombie movies, you should know what to do, you know, kind of thing. I kind of like those 2 stories the most out of this anthology. Would I recommend you guys go out there and grab this one? Yes, if you guys are into, you know, horror anthology films, but just keep in mind, very amateurish. Very amateurish filmmaking, and from a lot of the storylines, some of the acting is kind of like, it could have been like me and Gabriel like acting in this thing, and it would have been better. And that's not saying much, if you know what I'm saying, right? But the cover on here is actually really kind of cool, but you don't really see this at all in the movie. You know, but that's Longlived A Dead, a zombie anthology. I had a lot of fun with this one, in my opinion. I liked it. Alright guys, that's all I have to talk to you guys about today. I had a big old stack of stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please hit that like button if you guys support my videos, and I'll see you guys all next time.